चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्ता स्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome to our morning glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam. We are reading from Canto 2, Chapter 5, The Cause of All Causes. And today we will study verse 30. It is on the screen already. So, verse 30. Vaikarikarmano jagne deva vaikarikadasha दिग्वार्तका प्रचेतोऽस्मि वहानेन्द्रमित्रका वैकारिका मनोजग्ने वैकारिका जग्ने देवा वैकारिका दश दिग्वातर्का प्रचेतोऽस्मि वहाने मित्रका वैकारिका जग्ने देवा वैकारिका दश दिग्वातर्का प्रचेतोऽस्मि वहानेन्द्र मित्रका। Synonyms and translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vaikarikat, from the mode of goodness. Manaha, the mind. Jagane, generated. Devaha, demigods. Vaikarikaha, in the mode of goodness. Dasha, 10. Dik, the controller of direction. Vat, the controller of air. Arka, the sun. Prachetas, Varuna. Ashvi, the Ashwini Kumaras. Vahani, the fire god. Indra, the king of heaven. Upendra, the deity of heaven. Mitra, the one of 12 Adityas. Kaha, the Prajapati. Translation: from the mode of goodness, the mind is generated and becomes manifest, as also 10 demigods controlling the bodily movements, such as demigods known as the controller of directions, the controller of air, the sun god, the father of Daksha Prajapati, the Ashwini Kumars, the fire god, the king of heaven, the worshipable deity of heaven, the chief of Adityas, and Brahmaji, the Prajapati, all come into existence. Would anyone like to read the purport, please? Just first paragraph at this stage.
Purport.
Sure, Mataji, go ahead, please.
Purport. Vaikartika is the neutral stage of creation, and Tejas is the initiative of creation, while Tamas is the full display of material creation under the spell of the darkness of ignorance. Manufacture of the necessities of life in factories and workshops, excessively prominent in the age of Kali or in the age of machine, is the summit stage of the quality of darkness. Such manufacturing enterprises by human society are in the mode of darkness because factually there is no necessity for the commodities manufactured. Human society primarily requires food for subsistence, shelter for sleeping, defense for protection, and commodities for satisfaction of the senses. The senses are the practical science of life, as this will be explained in the next verse. Human civilization is meant for purifying the senses, and the objects of sense satisfaction should be supplied as much as absolutely required, but not for aggravating artificial sensory needs. Food, shelter, defense, and sense gratification are all needs in the material existence. Otherwise, in his pure, uncontaminated stage of original life, the living entity has no such needs. The needs are therefore artificial. And in the pure state of life, there are no such needs. As such, increasing the artificial needs, as is the standard of material civilization, or advancing in the economic development of human society, is a sort of engagement in darkness without knowledge. By such engagement, human energy is spoiled because human energy is primarily meant for purifying the senses in order to engage them in satisfying the senses of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord, being the supreme possessor of spiritual senses, is the master of the senses, Rishikesha. Rishika means the senses, and Isha means the master. The Lord is not the servant of the senses, or in other words, he is not directed by the dictation of the senses, but the conditioned souls or the individual living entities are servants of the senses. They are conducted by the direction or dictation of the senses, and therefore material civilization is a kind of engagement in sense gratification only. The standard of human civilization should be to cure the disease of sense gratification, and one can do this by simply becoming an agent for satisfying the spiritual senses of the Lord. The senses are never to be stopped in their engagements, but one should purify them by engaging them in the pure service of sense gratification of the master of the senses. This is the instruction of the whole Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna wanted first of all to satisfy his own senses by his decision not to fight with his kinsmen and friends. But Lord Sri Krishna taught him the Bhagavad Gita just to purify Arjun's decision for sense gratification. Therefore, Arjuna agreed to satisfy the senses of the Lord, and thus he fought the battle of Kurukshetra as the Lord desired.
Thank you so much, Mataji. So, very, I would say very clear, but at the same time heavy purport by Srila Prabhupada. When I first read it, the translation and the purport, it seems that there is no connection. The verse is actually talking about the mechanics of the creation, and in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is talking about how the senses are meant to be used in service of Krishna, but instead the entire human civilization is behind the satisfying of the senses only, and their so-called artificial sensory need. So how do we make this connection, or how do we understand that? We can say that the Srila Prabhupada uses the structural information or mechanics of creation of this verse to teach us the practical lesson on how a human being should live. So the translation states that mind and the demigods are generated from mode of goodness, Vaikarika. And how the modes are created, that we studied in previous verses, I think verse 24, which says that the modes are transformed for false ego. So false ego interacted with a mode of goodness, and the mind is created. Now, demigod also works on the same principle, that material false ego interacted with mode of goodness, and demigods are created. So hence we can understand that similar elements are created. We can understand that the elements that are working on a similar principle are created together. So in the purport, then Srila Prabhupada says that this very age of Kali Yuga is age of machine, or age of darkness, or tamas. And in yesterday's verses from 26 to 29, we have studied that our mind, our senses, they come from mode of goodness. So then why this age is dark? Because humans' activities are such. Our activities, though our senses and mind come from the pure state, we make them impure by using them for our gratification, by sensory gratification. So humans' activities are such, humans are engrossed in satisfying they're so-called artificial needs. Prabhupada very emphatically put that in a purport, that the artificial needs are actually, they are called artificial needs because they are needs of senses. In order to survive, or in order to, for our sustenance, we don't need so many things. What we need, Prabhupada said, is roti, kapda, makan, or a food, shelter, clothing, and I think there is one more thing that Prabhupada says. But because we want more and more, we have created the world around us that actually leads the humans into the darkness. So that's one way of looking at the connection between how the verse and the purports are connected. Another way to understand this is demigods are agents of the Supreme Lord. How agents? Because they work according to the instruction of the Supreme. Demigods are the agents of master of senses, Rishikesh. And since the demigods who control our abilities, now the verse also talks about the demigod. There are 10 demigods that are created, and they are given different controlling abilities. For example, Digvatas. So there are 10, the controller of the 10 directions. They control our ears. The Surya control our eyes. Vayu control our skin. Ashwini Kumars, they control our nose. Varuna control our tongue. Indra control our hands. Upendra control our feet. Agni controls our voice. Mitra control our anus. And Prajapatis control control our genitals. So all the demigods are created for the controlling, for the purpose of controlling our senses. So basically, when their such behavior or their such activity is also according to the management of the Lord, or they act according to what is given to the Lord. And so they act basically as a servant of the Lord. So we also similarly should act as the servant of the Lord. They are using their abilities in the service of Krishna. We use our senses in the service of Krishna. But instead, if we use it for ourselves, if we use it for our satisfaction, or if our activities are for our sensory satisfaction, then we are acting against the principle or the management of Krishna. So just to summarize this, senses and mind both come from the pure goodness, and they are meant to be used in satisfaction of Krishna. Demigods, which are created with mind, they do what they're meant for. That is, acting as a servant of God. So human also should act in line with the same principle, but instead we get busy in satisfying our own senses. And Srila Prabhupada says that in the purport that the sensory needs are artificial and they are aggravated. Why? Because again, emphasizing the same point, that intent of the senses is to get purified, serve senses of Krishna, and go back to him. So then what is the solution? Now we have identified the problem, or Prabhupada Prabhupada explained the problem in the first paragraph. So what is the solution? That comes in the second paragraph. Would anyone like to read the second paragraph?
I can read, Mataji.
Sure, Mataji.
The Vedas instruct us to get out of the existence of darkness and go forward on the path of light, tamasi ma jyotirgama. The path of light is therefore to satisfy the senses of the Lord. Misguided men or less intelligent men follow the path of self-realization without any attempt to satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord by following the path shown by Arjun and other devotees of the Lord. On the contrary, they artificially try to stop the activities of the senses, yoga system, or they deny the transcendental senses of the Lord, jnana system. The devotees, however, are above the yogis and the jnanis because pure devotees do not deny the senses of the Lord. They want to satisfy the senses of the Lord. Only because of the darkness of ignorance do the yogis and jnanis deny the senses of the Lord and thus artificially try to control the activities of the diseased senses. In the diseased condition of the senses, there is too much engagement of the senses in increasing material needs. When one comes to see the disadvantage of aggravating the sense activities, one is called a jnani. And when one tries to stop the activities of the senses by the practice of yogic principles, he is called a yogi. But when one is fully aware of the transcendental senses of the Lord and tries to satisfy his senses, one is called a devotee of the Lord. The devotees of the Lord do not try to deny the senses of the Lord, nor do they artificially stop the actions of the senses, but they do voluntarily engage the purified senses in the service of the master of the senses, as was done by Arjuna, thereby easily attaining the perfection of satisfying the Lord, the ultimate goal of all perfection. Thank you, Radha.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Radhanath Maharaj, in one of his class, says that real happiness or real enjoyment is to be with Krishna and his devotee. Everything else in this life is to bear the burden of this life. And when I read this paragraph, it is reminded me of this line, that everything else in this life is to bear the burden of this material life. So the solution here given is that we engage our senses in a master of senses, Rishikesha Rishikena Tatparatvena Nirmalam, that we engage our senses in the satisfaction of Lord's senses, and that's when the that is what called is bhakti. Srila Prabhupada at the end of the purport makes a very beautiful statement that the devotees of the Lord do not try to deny the senses of the Lord, nor do they artificially stop the action of the senses, but they do voluntarily engage. I put high emphasis on a voluntary engagement of the senses. They do voluntarily engage the purified senses in the service of master of senses, as was done by Arjuna, and thereby easily attaining the perfection of satisfying the Lord, the ultimate goal of all perfection. Means that senses will drive us everywhere. If we remember studying in Bhagavad Gita that image where the senses are horses, the senses are the horse. Now, mind is chariot. The intelligence is the chariot driver, and the soul is the passenger. So it is like horses will go in all the direction when they are driven, but the intelligence become the perfect or very skillful chariot driver. They manage, or intelligence manages the senses. So senses will go everywhere, but we have to train them. How? As again said in Bhagavad Gita, Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasavarjam rasoprasya param drashtva nivartante. So instead of restricting our senses from enjoyment, we engage them in higher taste. Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, in one of his articles, he says that Bhakti Yoga is a sensory activity. No, sensory spirituality. And which is so true, because it involves using our senses in the service of Krishna. And how? Simple answer that we can get is we use our eyes to look at the beautiful form of the Lord, the beautiful deities at the temple. We utilize our ears. Yesterday, His Grace Jamadagni Prabhu very nicely talked about how the sound is the base of the creation, and how the sound can be further utilized in service of Krishna. So we use our senses of hearing in service of Krishna by chanting, by hearing kirtana, by hearing Bhagavatam, and tongue by chanting wisdom. So these things we know. Parikshit Maharaj in Canto 10 actually further elaborates. He actually breaks down how the senses can be used. So this is from Canto 10, chapter 80, verse 3 and verse 4. He says, Savagaya tasya nite karo cha tatkarma karo manascha smared vasantam sthiragameshu शृणोति तत्पुण्यकथा सकर्णा श्रीरस्तु तस्योभलिङ्गम् अनामयेत् तदेव पश्यति तदधि चक्षु अङ्गानि विष्णो तज्जनानां पादोदकं यानि भजन्ति नित्यम्. So let's break it down. Savagaya tasya gunan gunite. So vak means to speech. So speech Savaga tasya gunan gunite. So vak means speech, gunan gunite. That means a speech should be utilized in glorifying the qualities of the Lord. Then he says, tat karma, karo cha tat karma. Karo means hands. So hands should be utilized in working from him. Then he says, manascha smaret vasantam sthira jangameshu. So mind should always remember of him. And when we say mind should always remember of him, yes, it is his name, his form, his quality, his pastime. But not only that, he should be in sthira and jangam. That means everything in moving and in moving, non-moving. We can see Krishna and we can remember him accordingly. And then Shrunoti Tat Punya Katha Sakarna. That means ear should actually Shrunoti means hearing, and Karna means ear. So that means we should hear the topics of Krishna. We should those are called real ears. Basically, that's how the verse is translated. Then in the next verse, he talks about utilizing the head and angani. So basically, if we consider ourselves, we are soul in this body, which has subtle elements and a gross elements. So we are made of subtle body and a gross body, and Krishna is up there in the spiritual sky. But so when we use our gross and subtle both bodies in service of Krishna, then that is so when we are using our subtle and gross body both, then we are making the complete use of our body in service of Krishna. As I said, our Chaitanya Charan Prabhu explains that bhakti is a sensory activities. Now, when it comes to senses, Prabhupada also talks about yogis and jnanis in the purport. So with senses, we talk that they go in everywhere. What can be done? So senses, either we surrender to senses. That means we satisfy our senses and we go in all directions. So we become a servant of our senses. That is basically a present human civilization. We become godas, which is materialism. Other approach to deal with the senses is to suppress them, which Prabhupada mentions in the purport, which is the activities of yogi. And we learned in the second chapter, second canto, second chapter, that yogis actually there are different yoga systems like yama, niyama, asana, pranayam, pratyahara, and so on, where basically yogi tries to practice and restrict their movements from sitting at one place, progressively going higher. But the devotees, what does devotee do? Devotees, as Prabhupada says, that they select where the senses can be directed. As I said, the senses can go in all directions, but instead they choose what to hear, what to talk, and remember Krishna. And not only that, they believe that Lord has a personal form. Because Lord has a personal form, they also believe that the Lord has senses. And instead of utilizing individual senses for their satisfaction, they purify the senses by engaging the senses in a service. And then Prabhupada quotes the example of Arjuna, that he did the same thing by deciding to fight in the battle of Kurukshetra. So hence the devotees are considered superior. Coming back to using our senses, in service of the Lord. So in again coming back to Canto 10, Parikshit Maharaj in chapter 80, verse 4, he says that Shirastutasyo bhayalingamane tad eva yatyasyati dakshi chakshu angani vishnoryathateja angani vishnorathatajjananam pado padodakamyani bhajanti nityam shirastu tasyo bhayalingamanam. So then shira means head. And so basically the head should bow down to Lord. And okay, we understand as a neophyte stage, we understand that we should be, and of course we come from Indian background, so that is kind of, we are trained in that we go to the temple, we bow down to the in front of the deity. That's fine. But here in the purport, it is said that head should bow down to all moving and non-moving creatures. That means we should honor, we should pay respect to all moving and non-moving creature. Then the verse further says, Tadeva yat pashyati tadadhi chakshu. And as we said, that the eyes should actually meditate on the form of Lord, should hanker to see the form of the Lord. Then again, is not only deities in the altar or in the temple, but everywhere around us. Urmila Mataji's book, I forgot the name of that book, but that book actually gives us how we can see Krishna in everything. And then lastly, Parikshit Maharaj says, Angani Vishnu Ratha Tajjanana Padayo Kayanti Bhajanti Nityam. That all the limbs should regularly honor the water that in which the Lord's lotus feet has bathed or his devotees has bathed. That means what does that mean? We can think of a Charnamrita. We at the temple we have festivals and beautiful ceremonies of Abhishek happens. We respect Charnamrita. We take Charnamrita as an offer, as a prasada. We honor it, basically. So we offer our senses, we offer our head, we offer our limbs. So basically, that is the physical expression of humility. Now, so if we think that way, so this is the journey. So that when we offer our senses to Krishna, we get the sense of Krishna. Because how? Because Krishna becomes increasingly present in our consciousness. As we start using our senses as Krishna, we start seeing that he is not far. He is within us. He is around us. He is everywhere. And that is the progress in our bhakti. The more we offer our senses, our mind to Krishna, the more we remember him. So if we think of a graph, so it is like a progressive graph where this shows our progress in bhakti. The vertical or the x-axis shows our senses. And because Krishna is present everywhere through entire creation, material and spiritual, if we think Krishna on the vertical line here, the more we go towards Krishna, we go higher and our bhakti progresses. It is like that. So in this way, the activities, so in this way, we use everything for the satisfaction of Krishna. And one practical question comes, Mataji, okay, these are from the verses. How do we put things into practical, or how do we practically experience that we are progressing? Simple example that came in my mind, that many of us in this call at some point were eating onion and garlic. With the practice of not eating onion and garlic, now we don't like it. There is no desire. And at the same time, if anyone eat us around, then at sometimes it becomes difficult to tolerate. So that shows that slowly the taste changes. Saturday evening, most of us go to the temple, or all of us go to the temple. Saturday evening, we could easily relax home because most of us work all 5 days a week. But we choose to go to the temple because our taste has developed in serving Krishna. Our taste has developed in associating with devotee. Our taste has developed in hearing about Krishna, participating in Kirtan. So that comes with the practice, and the more we do it, the more Krishna reciprocates, the more we see Krishna around us, and this is how we progress. We are close. It's nearly the time. I just want to say one thing, and then I would stop. His Grace Mahatma Prabhu, he put it this thing very nicely. He says that taste is a byproduct of Krishna's sense gratification. So as I was saying, that slowly as we start using our senses, we start developing the taste. And as we are developing a taste, that means Krishna's senses are also satisfied. We are getting the taste. So that is the byproduct. And to end the discussion with, it is said in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srīmad Bhāgavatam 3.2.6, that the taste is the seed of the devotional service, and one who is fortunate enough to receive this seed should plant in this heart. So we are all fortunate to receive the seed. We have all planted also by our efforts, and by mercy and by association. Let's just pray that we can put efforts towards growing it and towards progressing it. I would stop here. If anyone has any comments or questions or correction, please feel free to share. Okay. We conclude our session here today. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Krishna Guru, we will see you again tomorrow for our Bhagavatam study.
Thank you, Mataji. Very nice class.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Neil.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Thank you,
Mataji. Thank you,
Mataji.
Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you Mataji. You have a blissful day.
Thank you, Mataji, for nice class. Thank you. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.